What is the biggest wasted potential in a Ben 10 series? Well, if you clicked on this video, I think you might have an idea what it would be. What really screams wasted potential in a series is the ultimate forms that were never truly well utilized enough to make or have a significant impact in a series. And one of the reasons that's why that is simply because of how, one, the designs, one that got, and two, they didn't really have a clear function that was set out in the show. And by that I certainly don't mean that it didn't have a function, because it very well clearly did have a function. But what I mean more accurately is that even though it had a function, it didn't really distinguish itself enough to be exciting or increase tension in any good way, honestly. And this creative wall was a significant problem because the designs weren't that different, and when they were, they maybe looked a bit too different. And on top of that, it was just that it just felt like there were different aliens in themselves. There was no tension other than the energy cut back. 9 times out of 10, it would just either jump directly to the ultimate form, which wouldn't really make it seem useful, or it would feel like an unearned power-up, or it just wouldn't feel like a power-up at all. Like, it wouldn't feel that much different from the regular forms. And this creates several conceptual problems. In this video, I hope to be able to go over some of these forms, and by doing so, redesign them and see how I would introduce them differently and how I would make them function differently to the forms in the show. Now, starting off with the first ultimate form, Ultimate Humongousaurus. And I'm kind of mixed about this, mainly because the ultimate alien form for it doesn't look that good, but the one they introduced in Omniverse had a significantly better design, which is why in this redesign I kind of took elements of both, the spikes, everything, and I think it kind of did work out in the end. But just to get back to the ultimate forms, the reason that's why I don't think it worked out on the show is just because there wasn't any tension, and there wasn't an power-up, and they didn't feel that differentiated at all. Think of it this way: a lot of times the episode formulas would be Ultimate Humongousaur comes in, he gets beat up or still just losing just as much as Humongousaurus was, making him look not that much more powerful, even though he should be powerful enough to take out a whole army of Humongousaurs. I think that could have been solved in a few ways, and one of the ways it could have been solved is if maybe he had been designed in a way that, actually shows progress. I think the ultimate form shouldn't just be about making the aliens stronger with the press of a button, or rather correcting and looking at the weaknesses and weak points to improve them. So for example, I like that he has the cannons coming out of his hands, but I like how they look more in Omniverse, where it kind of looks like, the arm has been cut in half and you can see flesh, because I think that gnarly look actually looks quite well. And I think that he should look a bit more rugged and armoured, because Humongousaurus looks a bit too soft, like he would be too vulnerable, whereas Ultimate Humongousaurus should look reinforced. Now, as to the lack of tension in ultimate forms, I think this could actually kind of be sorted out with kind of a time limiter or like a setback to it. Now, there is a time limiter that activates quickly on the ultimate forms if he uses it for too long, but it feels so undiscernible, and sometimes it's Jenny just walking around with Ultimate Echo, and it's like, really, what is the time limiter? I think that they should be implemented kind of like Kaioken or the 8 Gates from Rock Lee, where they have a physical impact on Ben himself when he uses these forms. That way, when he uses them, he has to think about, am I willing to use them and partake the risk? Is it worth the risk for the power-up? And I think that would have a more interesting dynamic. I'm quite happy how this one came out, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Here you go. We're going to be going chronologically because up next is Swamp Fire. This one is one that I had a bit of trouble designing. He feels so underutilized, honestly one of the most underutilized ultimate forms. And the biggest problem I have with him, with his character design specifically, is that he's too much swamp, not enough fire. And what I mean by that is, in his original form, you can see both aspects of a character like Swamp, Wildvine, and Heat Blast, and you don't get to see that in his ultimate form. And so I tried to make him a bit more fire-like for his ultimate form, while still retaining the aspects of the light of this form that I like. I like the idea of him being blue instead of red, of the idea of this, the flame that's so hot that it's blue, but he never uses flame powers in the show. Honestly, I think the only powers he really uses are the seeds on his arms, and they're not that interesting, in all honesty. Also, by the way, this is the second time I've redesigned Swampfire. It's just the first time I wasn't quite happy with his design, and I feel like it wasn't Swampfire enough. So this one I stay closer to the original with the color palette of the original as well. And honestly, I think I can say that this is both an improvement over the original series design and my own design to Swampfire, because it takes into consideration that form factor was also making it more tree-like. If you pay attention to his fingers, they'll look a lot more like branches, and if you see his right arm, you see that it looks a bit like a cannon that you could hold with your other hand. And the idea was for him to have one arm where he can use do plant stuff, and the other arm where he can do fire stuff, and kind of interchange it based on the two. And if you pay attention to the face as well, you see aspects of heat blast design in it, which I think adds on quite a bit to it. Like, it makes it more interesting, fuller design. And colouring it in, honestly, was quite fun as well, just filling in the small designs to make it look as like wrinkly and, you know, grainy as possible, because when you have a Swampfire, you kind of want him to be a character that, you know, is both plant and fire, like I said. And I think this design worked out quite a bit in, but you guys feel free to let me know in the comments. Now, this is a novel that I kind of disliked a lot as well, honestly, and it was Ultimate Spider Monkey. And the biggest problem I had with it, honestly, is just it didn't look enough monkey, it looked too much gorilla and not enough spider. So I kind of changed that for the design, kind of with the one from Omniverse in mind, because that one was a lot better. But again, the color scheme from Ultimate Alien. And just like, you know, with the Ultimate Swampfire, I also designed this one before. And I think that time was even worse, honestly, because I think the Ultimate Spider Monkey ended up looking like a monstrosity. There wasn't definitely any alien. And this one I think came out a lot better, and I hope you guys agree in the end. Now, I'm quite happy how this one came out. Maybe you guys can let me know whether you think this is an improvement of his work. Well, either way, I'm happy with how it came out, and here it is. Well, up next is Ultimate Big Chill, and honestly, I think he is one of the coolest Ultimate forms in the show, as it was. And so for my iteration of Big Chill, I didn't change him that much. I just kind of added some qualities to him. I think that his ultimate form should look a bit buffer, maybe he can gain the strength in addition to the intensification of his powers. And the second aspect of Big Chill that also changes, like a higher focus on his fire powers over his ice powers in ultimate form. Now, I think it's kind of cool to have the idea of him in the fire so cold that it burns, but the problem with that is it just looks like he's turning him into ice. So maybe you can combine his phasing powers with his fire powers to get something creative out of that, whilst simultaneously also thinking about, you know, how he could absorb heat energy instead of being the one that extends heat energy, whilst maintaining his ice powers. I think that should have been done. Originally I tried to do red and blue, but it didn't work out, so I ended up going with red and black in the end, because I just think the end result will look better with that color dynamic, and red and blue just ended up looking great. Now, up next is Ultimate Cannonball, and I find it kind of hard to balance out his design in a way that could make it interesting that the Ultimate form didn't already. It wasn't the worst, but it wasn't the best, so I decided to focus on the spikes throughout his body, and also giving him a more like maybe whale-like appearance to him. I thought he kind of looked like a killer whale, and I went in fully with this, even giving him gills lately, because it is then Cannonball also becomes a alien you can use underwater, which adds on to him, making him an even more interesting character. It expands on what he can do, gives him more abilities, kind of like what the best ultimate form is. Now, that best ultimate form is the one I'll do next, but before I do, obviously I have to show you guys what the end result looks like. Honestly, I'm quite happy and I love the way this one turned out. Now, this one was one that was really hard to actually improve on, because it is the best ultimate alien in the series, in all honesty, both from a design standpoint and a usability standpoint. And maybe we should discuss what makes him such a great ultimate alien. Well, to begin with, his design felt very streamlined and modern, and it kind of if you look at it closely, you'll see that his head kind of looks like a boombox. So he really leaned into the sound aspect, and it significantly changed what you could and couldn't do. Echo Echo was a cloning alien that happened to have, sound abilities. Ultimate Echo Echo was genuinely a powerhouse. That was one of the aliens that he would use when things would get serious. Even up against someone like Ultimate Kevin 11, he was able to almost kill him, with was it Barrier of Doom, something like that. And so for my redesign of Ultimate Echo Echo, I mostly kept everything the same with a few adjustments. I kind of just thought it would be cool to have more pipes and tubes and a few aux cables fitted in, so that he looks a bit more like, into that aux sound aspect of him. And all things considered, I think the design came out really well. I really like how the colours contrasted. Is it better than the original? Absolutely not, but hey, it's got my own twist on it. And if you can see, it's even got a handlebar at the top, because I really wanted to lean into the boombox aesthetic, and I think that came out well. But again, the original is best in this case. So if you guys can let me know, I'd appreciate it. What do you guys think? I'm happy with the result. So now with this one, I am reusing the one from my last video, but I honestly don't mind, because it is, I would say, to the most extent, an improvement of the original design. And the reason for this is because even though it might not be a better design on paper than the Ultimate Wildmar design, I think it is definitely more original. I really hate the sort of recolor they did with him. Not much changed. So this one I just went for a more animalistic look, and honestly I like how he came out in the end, even though it's not the best, not the worst either. Now this one really was one of my favorite ones to design, in all honesty, just because it just felt like every element just came together so easily, and it was just like, wow, I actually feel like kind of in my zone designing this. Like, it just feels natural to design this, whereas the other ones I kind of had to stretch a bit of my abilities to be able to do them effectively. With this one, I really felt at home. I would honestly be willing to say that as it was already a pretty good design. Maybe not a good ultimate design, just simply because I feel like it didn't change that much from the original design as it was. But I think with this one, it definitely felt a bit better, in all honesty, with the way things came out. I did struggle a bit with drawing the hands, but, well, I think for the rest of it, I quite liked it, and it all came well together. The colours ended up coming all together fairly well, and I think the proportions kind of also added a bit well. He's also honestly one of the best ones, not only in aesthetic wise, how unique they are, for basically being based on Ultraman, but also just power wise, genuinely one of the coolest ones in Ben's arsenal. Well, and the end result is pretty much here, and I can honestly say I like the way it came out. Now, last but not least, it would have to be Ultimate Ben. And what you realise is that I'm not starting to draw him from scratch, and that is because I did a drawing of him before. That's the one. And honestly, I didn't like the way it turned out. I thought it looked a bit stiff in terms of the pose, and the design felt a bit too derivative, so I decided to redesign it, keeping some ideas but completely remaking it. And this time I decided to have the idea of like an ultimate human being, this like almost childlike creature with, you know, chiseled jawline and perfect features, as an idea for an Ultimate Ben, with the idea, the shoulder presented of him being able to use like the alien forms without necessarily transforming. And you see that through the belt that he's wearing, actually, because the belt that he's wearing, and yes, the proportions are a bit comical, because I didn't want him to be a bit hero-like, or like his proportions as well, like, but it's like an exaggerated feature. But what you look at, if you look at his belt, you realize that each of them is like mini Omnitrix with the Ultimate Aliens, and it is him being able to use their powers in the space form just by clicking on them and then transforming automatically to use the power without changing his form, actually, just like he does in the show. But it's not just him thinking it, because I think that's a bit too BS. And I quite like the way he came out. Maybe the proportions are a bit wonky, but I like the stocky and superhero-like build, because I think the problem is they just made him look too plain in the show. Okay, so now just to end the video, I hope you guys honestly enjoyed the designs and the concepts raised in this video, and leave a like, subscribe, and comment if you want to see more content like this. If you don't, I don't know, dislike energy. Not much else you can do, but you guys have a good one.